You know,
Hey Steve,
how's it going?
pretty good, sir. Thank you very much for asking. How are you doing?
I'm good. Had a really awesome pairing session with Sarah.
Nice.
Hello.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just excited for this meeting. Have the recording worked right from the outset, right? So when you joined, it started recording? Okay. And then I'm curious if we'll each have access to it or if only I as the owner will have, as like the meeting owner will have access to it. We'll
Well, I
see.
think once it gets uploaded to the cloud, it ends up everyone can get to those files, right?
I hope so.
I've never recorded or tried to figure any of that out yet, so I couldn't even help. I'll let you guys do it.
It's not, it took like maybe a few minutes just to get the GitLab unfiltered stuff. It's more complicated if you want to post to the proper GitLab channel.
Sure.
It gets a bit more involved, but just to go to unfiltered, it's pretty easy. You just have to sign in as that user.
So the auto upload is just for the Google Drive. It won't auto put it on YouTube.
Exactly, yeah, unless you're live streaming.
Okay.
Hello, Gigi.
Hello, how's it going?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good.
Hey, Gigi, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get started. We have a fair bit to cover. So, Steve, do you want to lead off?
Sure. Yeah, I think maybe last week I ran into, well, I was looking at time zone stuff, and Dan had a cool tool that I was playing with. And then I ran into the Verify team had in their, I forget what it's called, their Slack description or subject. They had a link to that time zone tool, and it seemed pretty simple and cool. Sorry about the dog. And so that seemed like a good idea, because now that we're getting spread out, it's good to know when everyone else is. But yeah, it looks like Dan's got it all set up and it's all working, and I think pretty much everyone's on there. One of either Dan or Tim, one of you has to move so that we can have different, not more than one person in each time zone.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. And if I end up going anywhere, it might end up being in Utah, which is not going to help us either. But anyway, yeah, cool. So yeah, there's a join link there. I've also, whoops, why did I pick the Verify team? I'm a silly human. Let me just put up the right one. GitLab package team, and here we are. We're awfully spread out. Let me just. Cool. So I've added that link into the document. So our team page you can look at. Anyway, and we also have there.team is a toolbar utility that I'm using anyway. I don't know if anyone else wants to use it. And you can add people and or just random time zones if you want to add it. So that's another option. I think the other question I have, and this comes a little bit from your question in the APAC company call last night, Gigi, was like how we help this async process work better and help it be more of a useful experience for everyone. And I think I just want to get everyone thinking about it. I know Gigi is like your third day or something, so you probably have some limited thoughts about it, but yeah. So if you just want to everyone should be thinking about how we can help this work better. This is one of the things we're doing, which is having a team meeting later in the day. As you can see, Tim added new sort of subjects for each of these team meetings during the week so that we can do a bit of grooming at the end, which is why I wanted to go fairly quickly. But let's sort of start iterating through and trying to find a good way to handle the async work that people are doing. And I will be moving one meeting per month to the 4 p.m. time from this meeting, and one meeting per every other. I think it's every third week or so I'll move the retro as well, and the retro next week is going to be at 4 p.m. So current plan. We can improve if we need to. So thank you. I'll read Nick's. Amelia in UX raised some concerns around the new container registry empty state being too wide, not matching up with guidelines. This is my bad. I missed the guidelines around this and increased the width, thinking it would suit the content better. I've created a new issue where this can be discussed. Once the solution has been settled on, I'll apply the fix. I wasn't sure about milestones, so I've added 12.2 as it should be a quick fix. If this is wrong, can someone let me know? Also, please add any comments if you have any as well, or two, he said. Comments, anyone?
If there is something like that where, we notice something, it's a quick fix, is that a okay practice to just like add it to the current milestone? Maybe just let you know that we're adding some work to the current milestone?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do, but just please make sure that like sometimes our quick fixes turn into not so quick fixes. So you want to be really careful about what we're committed to delivering, because it's important to do that. Sometimes it might be just have a conversation with Tim, ping it in the channel so that people can contribute if they have thoughts. But just make sure it's not going to throw anything else out is really the biggest issue.
Makes sense.
And maybe Tim would like to throw something out if it's a really important issue as far as product's concerned. So definitely want to check in with Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, so, well, yeah, mine was welcome Ian. He's not here today, as we could see in the time zone app. It's 1 a.m. for him presently, but he'll be in the next set of meetings that we have. I'm really excited to have him. It kind of addresses the issue that Nick mentioned above. Having a designer fully dedicated to our team is going to be awesome and really helpful for all of the work that we're doing. So I'm really excited for him to join.
Yeah, it's super awesome to have the team getting built out. And then on that note as well, to continue the thought of being stoked to have Peeps here. It's great to have you on the team, Gigi. First team meeting. I thought I'd bring this one forward so you have a chance to sort of just meet a couple of the other people in person rather than having to look at me the whole time. But it's great to have you on the team, mate.
Yeah, it's good to, put faces to the names. I take a while to get familiar with people and be comfortable like calling people by their names, so it's good. Yeah.
Nice. Glad to have you here, mate.
Yeah.
The Redis situation, I linked to it in the package channel. And this is a rapid action around Redis performance that was actually impacting our production site's overall performance. There's a lot of effort going into sort of diagnosing what was going on. It looked like there might have been some issues around people trying to hack or DDoS our servers. So if I'll add the link here, but it's definitely in the package channel already. Definitely something to look into. We might end up having to do some work either in our area around where we may be using Redis for caching or in CI/CD generally, just to sort of help with that effort to clean up. So something to keep in mind for Steve and Gigi as you're sort of getting up to speed. Next thing to keep in mind is maintainers, technical interviewers, Golang hiring, and also actually DB maintainers. We want to keep in mind that it's sort of intended for senior engineers in the team to become technical interviewers and maintainers relatively quickly. We're pretty short on maintainers right now. We only have one database maintainer as far as I know. So that puts a lot of load on that person and means that our requests for maintenance and reviews and approvals will be delayed. So it's a really important thing to think about. And in the case of both Steve and Gigi and yourselves, it's just something to work towards. And there's all guidelines around that, which I can add to the document as well. Cool. Questions on that? Should be relatively clear from the documents I'll post, so something to keep in mind. Boards, I've created 3 boards for the team. Assignments, planning, and bugs. They're going to stay at the top of the agenda document. As Tim already added them there, I put a note in here just to sort of call them out for everyone's attention. Assignments are going to show just anyone on the team and what's currently assigned to them. That includes myself and Tim, and then Steve and Gigi, and then Ian, Nick as well. So we all have a column there a list inside that board. At any point, I'm gonna be basically looking at that fairly regularly, and if I see someone with like 86 things assigned to them, I'm gonna be like, what's going on? That seems like too many. But I think the disconnect, which Steve pointed out today when we were chatting about it, was that there isn't really a direct link between the MR and the issue always, because you might have extra MRs and you have to actively sort of say the MR closes or whatever it's, I think it's closes the issue. So you have to take an active step to make sure the issue is closed once the MRs are completed. So something to keep in mind there. Planning is open issues that are assigned to group package. Well, actually, no, that's DevOps package. And other work items we actually have a label on for the milestone, a milestone on. So that's all of the ones that are coming up. We'll maintain that list. This will be the basis of a discussion that we have around planning. So definitely something that was more sort of Tim's realm, but definitely something that we'll be chatting about in these meetings. The last one is bugs. This is a good place to go if you sort of like hit a point where maybe you're waiting for a couple of reviews on your issues and you've got a little bit of a window of time. Might be worth going and checking out those bugs, maybe check to see if there's something you can replicate. And pretty much as a good place to go check, because those are the things that will come into our planning board as we sort of add a milestone to them. So it'd be helpful to sort of have a look at them. They're ordered in priority, so we have lists for the P1s, P2, P3, and P4. And just, Gigi, so that you know, my idea so far is to only assign issues to yourself once you start working on them, or there's something specific that you need to do. In your case, you have a couple of assignments already, and that's just because they're onboarding tasks for you, so that it's clear what you need to work on as you're starting up, and that way you don't have to be like, what do I do next? You've got something there to work on. So we talked about that yesterday, but I just wanted to say it here. Cool, thank you. Tim, over to you.
Yeah, so I thought, as we were talking about those boards, which are super helpful, we mentioned last week we did a milestone planning, and then Dan, you and Steve and I had a backlog grooming session where we went through some other open issues and talked about priorities and things to follow up on. And we mentioned that might be useful to do twice a month as part of our regular cadence of this meeting, to just review the top 5 or 7, however many high priority items there are, and make sure that we're following up on them and answering any questions, and that we can get them ready for whichever milestone they'll be put in. So as part of that, I'm looking at the planning board, and the column all the way on the left is basically our full backlog. This is the open column, and they're not all sorted. You'll see there's hundreds of issues there, but I'm trying to keep the top 5 sorted. And so the first item on here is this registry deleting image tag deletes all tags with the same image ID. This is one of our most popular issues. I have the issue open now. Do you think it'd be helpful to share my screen as we go through this, or should I just keep talking through it without?
Yeah, it might be worth sharing your screen just so we're on the same page. I generally prefer looking at it myself, but just for now, particularly while Gigi's new, it might be easier just to show you screen.
Okay.
Obviously, be careful there isn't any mention of any customers.
Yes, thank you. Good point. So there's currently this issue that if this is my container registry and I go to delete this item here, it deletes everything that's associated with that. It deletes all tags associated with the image ID. And this is it's a frustrating experience for users, because oftentimes people lose all their work or lose all their images and not know. So in 12.0, we launched a modal here that would warn them at least that this behavior will happen. But users are still requesting that we fix the core behavior. And so, yeah, this is, let's see, 37 upvotes. So it's a decent amount for our stage. It's not the biggest, but it's definitely on the higher end. And in the issue, there's several users that have proposed potential fixes and even contributed a merge request, which I think we decided not to implement. So this is an issue that I'm working on grooming now, just ironing out the problem to solve and putting together a proposal. But I just wanted to bring it up here as this is something that I would like to see us to work on, and if there were any questions or comments or anything.
Yeah, this one's currently assigned to Gigi. So if you jump to the assignments board, you'll see that this is ordered. And just so you know, Gigi, we ordered those in order of preference. So your items in that list should be in the correct order. It's probably just easier if you link off the document because I linked.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay,
but you got it there.
This is why you don't share your screen, by the way. Just watch how inefficient I am. Yeah, this one.
Yeah. So this is assigned, but given that it's an onboarding task, we want to make sure Gigi has every opportunity to sort of get a sense of where that is. But yeah, I agree with that priority. It's a good one. Add lots of value. It'll be really a fun thing. You'll get one of the highest upvotes. Gigi, you'll be sort of finishing off, and everyone will be pretty stoked. So.
Cool. Exciting. Yeah.
What do you think about for switching this issue here, the CI registry user to untag their own images? This one is already, I just fleshed this out today and it has all the details in there and it's a bit more ready to go. So if you're ready to start on something now, I think you can start on this one, and then I could work on having this done for tomorrow or probably.
Well, remember, Gigi's still in his first week, so he's going through the company onboarding work. So you can, unless he's feeling particularly feisty, you could probably expect him not to start working on these things until next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like maybe tomorrow I might start looking into code. I still feel like I have a bunch of stuff to tick off, and my laptop is still not fully set up. So I'm still working on that, but maybe tomorrow I can start looking into it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so back to the, geez, wherever this box is, it's in the wrong place. Okay. The next issue, this is the how to transfer project with the container registry enabled. This is another really popular issue. For us, 33 upvotes, a lot of negative customer sentiment about people that are trying to transfer a project and then are blocked from doing so once the container registry is enabled. They just receive an error, basically. And there's a lot of customer comments in here about, what the behavior is and what we could do. So I believe the blocker, based on the comments, has been just basically how we talk to Docker is what the problem is. I think maybe Camille gets into it. Yeah, he's getting it here. So it's saying it's possible, but we may have to relax a bit on allowing unsigned tags, for example. So this one still needs some comments, but I just wanted to, again, just bring it up and say, ask opinions, questions, anything like that.
Yeah, I think this one requires a little bit of investigation, particularly because, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but I think you've mostly been poking at the package repositories of whichever flavor we have. So this would need a little bit more poking to sort of work out what it is that we need to do.
Yeah, for a little context, the package registries, those generally can't be transferred because the package name is very associated to the path of the project itself. So if you move the project, you change the path, and therefore you lose that reference. However, I'm not sure how the containers are different. It would just take a light investigation to look, but I'm guessing that Camille has commented on it, certainly, since he probably set it all up.
Do you think in principle, Steve, that we should allow for users to transfer projects if they have a package registry or a container registry set up? And to me, that makes sense that we would want to allow that behavior.
Yeah, I think that should be allowable for sure.
Will that be affected by any package signing though? If we, because we can sign the containers, right? So if we move them and there's some name change involved, we might need to actually look at that. And that's probably what Camille's calling out when he's.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's calling, is that the way that the images are created is it the hashing and digests that are created would change, and that certainly would break things. But yeah, that would take some investigation. I'm guessing that is the root of the problem, is dealing with the way that the image itself is constructed.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I don't know, we should probably look at setting aside some time to investigate this. If it's in 12.5, we should definitely have it sort of investigated by the time 12.4 is coming to a close. So we do have a little minute to sort of think about this. I'm thinking we probably should have a chat separately about sort of how we do work through these types of things, because you basically have to do some R&D on whatever issue it is to verify and make sure it's happening, and then see what the root cause is and talk to whoever you need to talk to. So I'm
really sorry, Dan. I'm really interested in for us as a team figuring out this makes sense, and really what we're saying is, what is a registry and how does it move between projects? Is it transferable? What are the qualities of that? So I think the reason I bring up this issue now is exactly for that, so we could talk about it and figure out what should the desired behavior be, and how can we plan for that. So it's early now. We're a few milestones ahead, but definitely worth talking about and researching, I think.
And as for like, if it's like sort of intensive code research, I have seen in other issues, like for example, the personal access token OAuth issue I'm working on right now. I believe it was the last milestone. There was an issue for doing sort of the investigation that was part of that milestone, which led to doing the work in this milestone. So I don't know if we wanted to follow that pattern at all and kind of set this one up like 1 or 2 milestones ahead of time to assign to an engineer to take a closer look at.
That makes sense to me. It's really interesting you bring that up, because today in the product meeting, they were talking about a product discovery milestone where you will go and try and basically do exactly what you just said, try and find out as much information as we can. You build towards a prototype, and then in the following milestone, you build towards something that's more of an actual feature, not just a prototype.
Yeah, I definitely think we can look at using that model. I guess my reasoning for suggesting a separate meeting is because we're coming up on, just look at the time. And so I don't want to go too long on this meeting, but definitely think it's worth discussing how we approach this. I would say we need to allocate some time to do investigation regardless of what model we follow, just so that we can, get a sense of where this is at. Whether it's like just a straight up limitation of the Docker distribution registry and signed images or not, right?
Okay.
If it is a limitation, then we're going to have to look at some sort of pull and push sort of republish situation, which is not going to be ideal for people, I imagine.
Thanks, Dan, for keeping us on time. It's very valuable.
No worries.
I'll move on to the next issue, which is this view labels of Docker registry images. One of the users I interviewed as part of our user research session showed me a UI that he had built that took advantage of the Docker API and the GitLab API. And one piece that was really important for him was being able to view the labels as well as the tags that go along with the Docker image. I believe this information is being passed through the Docker API. So it's possible that we just need to maybe, if we collect that data, and then maybe display it in the UI. I thought this could be a nice win for our users who are having trouble with things, identifying which images are theirs. We can give them some extra metadata. But I wanted to open it up to feedback, and if you think this is useful, or any questions.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, this sort of falls into the sort of value adds, or somewhat simple value adds that we could do. Simple, I don't mean simple as in terms of engineering effort, but I just mean like the sort of basic level things that we could add to help people feel a little happier with this particular product offering. And I think there are a couple of other issues we have floating around for that as well. So yeah, this seems like a reasonable one to add. think we start looking at getting responses from API, the Docker distribution registry API, and then sort of storing them in some way in order to be able to do this. Or just returning them, and that would end up being similar to the package list we have right now, which, you know, you can't sort and it's pretty limited in some ways. So yeah, I think this one seems fine for that.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. This is an interesting one. I actually wanted to talk to Steve. You and I had spoken about this maybe a couple of weeks ago about NPM. We don't allow users to publish NPM packages to, or Maven for that sense, to the group level. We allow for pulling from the group, but not necessarily pushing to the group. I wanted to get a sense from you, Steve, and maybe Dan, like, do you think that we should allow that? Is that something that you could see being useful? And if so, is it possible? Is it feasible? Oops, you're on mute, I think.
That one's a little tricky. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of, you know, if you're publishing, because no matter what, a package still is, you know, it belongs to the project that you are developing. So publishing it somewhere else, I'm not sure necessarily what the benefit is. I mean, like, if you're working on a project, you would, you know, you'd be aware of the project, you're working on it, you're the one publishing it into a package. So unless there's like some, you know, workflow that I'm not familiar with some of these different languages, I don't necessarily see a reason that would be necessary. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other thoughts on it.
I think from my sense of it is that we are taking this protocol and mapping it onto our workflow, and that's kind of why we say we want to like publish to groups or whatever. So I think from a customer usage standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, because this is certainly something you've looked at. You know, I think from a customer usage standpoint, it matches up to how a customer may be using GitLab, whereas it may not match up to the way Maven was intended to work in terms of how things are published. And so from that standpoint, I think this sort of falls into the broader sort of question of how GitLab wants to implement these protocols as it overlays on top of what our tool set is. So I think that's kind of where this is. I think it's more of a like, hey, you know, how are we currently publishing? Is it possible just to add an endpoint and it will be fine? And that will just take us some investigation around what metadata is stored with the packages we're publishing and whether we can sort of identify them at the group level in a way that isn't sort of totally, you know, contrary to the way we're already doing it for a project.
Okay, that makes sense. I tend to agree with Steve that it doesn't necessarily make sense to push Maven packages to the group level. But then when I think about, does it make sense to put images and tags to the group level to be able to push them, it maybe makes a little more sense because you may share common images across projects, whereas a package feels more like project dependent, project and code dependent.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can see an organization from a group level kind of having one team that publishes packages and everyone in that sort of team uses it. I think this probably could do with some investigation and sort of user stories.
Yeah.
I think if we struggle to come up with user stories, there's not much point in spending a bunch of time investigating it, right?
No, this was helpful. I ever since Steve and I talked about it for NPM, I've been thinking about it. So I wanted to take the chance to bring it up with this Maven issue. Okay, well, we only have 2 more minutes. I have one more issue, and I'm not sure if we could do it if this falls into that simple category of things that aren't simple. Auto rebuilding Docker images when the baseline image is updated. I'm not sure if that's something that we could feasibly do, even if it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we'd be limited in terms of we don't have the notifications API set up right now. So like we're not going to know that the baseline images are updated, right? So like we would need some way to have that information pushed to us. Yeah, I can't even talk anymore. Pushed to us in order to then say run a pipeline again to rebuild the image, right? So I don't. That would be the point of contention on this one for me. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that, Steve, or
No, I totally agree. That I think this issue depends on another issue where we set up the notifications API.
Do you think it would be a good MVC to set up the notifications API with just an update when the baseline image is updated? Or is that it's more of a complex version? We could pick something simpler.
No, that's probably like a good starting point. I don't know much about the notifications API, so I might be very naive in saying that, like we should just be able to, do that one thing to start. But yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, and I think I'd only want to be careful about if we're doing some sort of POC with the notifications API that we are pretty clear on what the investment is in time for people, because we are currently planning future sort of steps for the container registry as a whole, and so that effort might be just sort of it may be really helpful. I'm not saying it won't be, but it might not be useful going forward.
Okay, I'll sit on this one for a couple of weeks while we determine the future path, but I keep this open as a good idea if we decide to start using the notifications API. This could be a potential first step.
Awesome. Steve, do you want to run through those things really quick?
Yeah, I just said get rid of one. The only thing was just mentioning that the whole subgroup packages issue. I'm not so sure if it will make 12.1 now because it's still waiting on, the maintainer review I don't think has really started yet. So I'm not, I know that, if you look at the older calendars where the code cutoff was on the 7th, we've passed that date, but I don't know if that's still a thing. But I guess we'll see.
There's a fair amount of contention around whether it is still a thing, but we're going to sort of do our best to deliver what we say and on the 7th, unless Tim says otherwise.
Yeah, but whether or not it makes it into the release on the 22nd, I don't know. So we'll find out, I guess, as soon as it does get finished.
Cool.
One last thing that I wanted to say, Gigi, if you have any questions, I'm the other backend engineer in Package, so feel free to hit me up on Slack if I'm not online at the same time as you, and happy to help with anything. I've also only been here about a month and a week, so went through the same things you're going through.
Cool, thanks. Questions will come. I'm very confused.
We're all laughing because we know those fields.
What are you guys talking about?
It'll come, Gigi. Don't worry about it, mate. Definitely getting through your week, the first week onboarding is really important. I would encourage you not to get into working on code yet. Give yourself a minute to get through that stuff. And then sort of as you start picking up that first ticket that we have in the issue, that we have in the list, I think you'll get some help, you'll have questions, and then a lot of things will start making sense quicker. So don't stress about it too much.
Yeah, sure. No worries. It's normal.
Cool. Yeah, totally. All right, we're at time. Thank you very much, peeps. If we have suggestions around how to refine these meetings, please let's chat about it in the Package channel and figure it out there.
Cool.
Thanks, peeps.
Bye, everybody.